To begin talking about the heart in this section of the cardiovascular system, we're going to begin by discussing where it's located and a little bit about the tissues that make up the structure of the heart. The heart is obviously located in the thoracic cavity, but it's in a region more specific in the central region called the mediastinum. Now, the mediastinum is the area defined as the space between the two lungs, superior to the diaphragm, anterior to the vertebral column, posterior to the sternum, and sources vary exactly where the upper limit is, but it should be approximately equivalent to the superior extent of the rib cage. Besides the heart, the mediastinum also contains a number of other structures. The major vessels connected to the heart, such as the aorta, the vena cava, and the pulmonary vessels, are going to be contained there also. Plus, it's going to include the trachea and the esophagus, the primary bronchi, the thymus, which is not pictured in this depiction right here, but is a gland that would be located in the mediastinum, and some other smaller vessels and structures that aren't usually enumerated in an anatomy text like this. Now, looking at the heart, you also can see in this it has a point called the apex that's off to the left side, and the region where the major vessels are connected is called the base. Now, normally when we hear base and apex, we usually think bottom and top, base for the bottom, apex for the top, like a mountain. But in this case, actually, it's reversed. The apex is basically the lowest point in the heart, and the base is the top of the heart. In this representation of the sagittal view of the thoracic cavity, we can see the location of the heart. The dotted line points out where the base of the heart is. And what we can see here is that the aorta that emerges from the base of the heart ascends up briefly, arches over, and then descends posterior to the heart, just anterior to the vertebral column. This picture also outlines where the thymus would be located, just anterior to the heart, which is not usually depicted in pictures of an anterior view because the thymus would be blocking the heart. And of course, we're always interested in looking at the heart. It's sort of the primary organ that anatomists think of. This is a picture that comes from the famous collection called Gray's Anatomy, and it's a look at the heart in the mediastinum from a superior view, and you can see where the aorta would be. It's been cut open, and the descending aorta posterior to that. You can see the pulmonary arteries, depicted in blue here, branching left and right and going to either lung, as well as the superior vena cava, which has been cut open. And the red that we can see coming from the lungs is the pulmonary veins that will be leading back into the heart. Also notice that there's a space around the heart, which is the pericardial space, which is actually adjacent to a similar space that surrounds the lungs called the pleura. Consider this question. When you feel that you've reached an answer, hit the next button to go into the next slide, which will reveal the correct answer. The mediastinum is a space between the lungs and therefore would not contain the lungs. The major vessels that are connected to the heart, the aorta and the vena cava in this list, would be in the mediastinum, as well as the esophagus that passes posterior to the heart on its way from the oral cavity to the abdominal cavity. In the image from the Gray's Anatomy text, I mentioned the pericardial cavity, and that's also indicated, labeled here. The label is just above the apex of the heart label. The pericardium is a serous membrane that covers the outside of the heart and lines the inside of the mediastinum around the heart. It provides a protective layer so that as the heart beats, it doesn't interfere with the surrounding tissues. There's a fluid filling that pericardial cavity, which acts as a lubricant so that the heart can move within that space. This image depicts a section of the wall of the heart, and the pericardium is represented here. The pericardial cavity, the light blue streak, is where the fluid is contained that acts as that lubricant. On the side where the heart is the visceral layer of the pericardium, and outside of the cavity space is the parietal layer that's lining the inside of the mediastinum. There's also a fibrous layer, a dense, irregular connective tissue layer that surrounds everything, anchoring the pericardium and the heart in place. The pericardium is made up of a simple squamous epithelium and its associated areolar connective tissue. It's really one continuous membrane that covers the outside of the heart and then extends to line the inside of the mediastinum area around the heart. So the apical surface of the two layers, parietal and visceral layer, are actually opposed to each other with the intervening pericardial cavity. They secrete the pericardial fluid into that space. Now, also in this picture, it depicts the layers of the wall of the heart, and there are three. The outermost layer of the wall of the heart is the epicardium, which is another name for the visceral pericardium. And then the majority of the thickness of the wall of the heart, depicted here, is the myocardium, or the cardiac muscle layer of the heart. And then the inner lining is a very thin endocardium, which is a simple squamous epithelium lining the inside of the heart, which is continuous with the endothelium that's the lining of the vasculature, the blood vessels. Now, if we were to look at a section of the wall of the atria, another part of the heart, the myocardium would be much smaller in thickness, but the same layer arrangement would apply. Consider this question. When you feel that you've reached an answer, hit the next button to go into the next slide, which will reveal the correct answer. Again, the outer layer of the wall of the heart is called the epicardium, which is really just another name for the visceral layer of the pericardium. The other choices here, endocardium and myocardium, are their parts of the wall of the heart, and the fibrous pericardium is the outer layer of the pericardium, which is a dense, irregular connective tissue helping to anchor the heart and the pericardium in place.